these are some of the things that, that you really, really need to think about. And finally, and I think this is really, really a key question, is it really the right time? Could you do it later? Should you do it now? When will you reap the most benefits? And some of the common pitfalls to avoid when considering this is, are you using this expansion opportunity as a response to what your competition is doing? I'm not saying that you should ignore competition, but competition should not make you depart from your strategy. If your strategy was to cement the current market that you have right now and ensure that you've grown and you've built on brand loyalty, it doesn't mean that if your competition has decided that they're going to go into a neighboring country, you should quickly scramble and go into that neighboring country. No, but you should not continue operations as if they've not gone into that new country. So looking at what was our North Star, and is this part of our North Star? And then number two, please always take care of your existing customer base. They are the ones who are keeping you there. So don't forget about them. So, and even just as I mentioned, looking at the big picture, think of it as, what is my 10-year strategy? What is my 5-year strategy? There's this expansion opportunity that has come in. How does it fit into my long-term strategy? And sometimes your strategy might have said that I need to make the expansion in 2 years, but something happens that may cause you to want to react and bring back the 2 years to 1 year. That is still okay, because there might be political changes in terms of changes in legalities, changes in the social structure, the economy. And for instance, when COVID happened, maybe some companies had not decided to expand in terms of maybe increasing their bandwidth or moving into new cities, but they had to do it quickly because they noticed that there is a market need that has risen due to the current situations. But does it mean that they had not planned to expand? Most probably not. Probably they had planned, but at a certain time to come. But what should you avoid? Some of the pitfalls that you should be avoiding when looking at the big picture. Now, when you look at the big picture, you will always fall into prey of the analysis paralysis. For instance, have you ever found yourself Googling something and 30 minutes later, you're in another topic, knee deep into it, watching YouTube videos? Avoid that. Don't overanalyze. Don't get sucked up into the details, and don't get sucked up into your competitor activity. It's true, you should ensure that you've made your competitor a person, but it doesn't mean that you should be sucked into whatever they're doing. And then don't only focus on certain aspects of the business. Any business person will tell you it is very, very tempting to focus on the customers, because customers is the king, they're the ones who are bringing in the money. But at the same time, please always look at other aspects that will make your business more sustainable. So don't be customer driven. And when you're looking at the big picture, don't focus on the day-to-day activities. For instance, the payments that you're making every day. You can say that my big picture is making my payment flawless. No, that is not the big picture. That is what should be there in your day-to-day. It is just about improving your operational efficiency. Big picture should be what is my North Star? Where am I looking at in the future? And so we have spoken about what you need to start thinking of when you're thinking of expansion. And I'm assuming you have the basics. You've done the market research, you've done a financial plan, you've done a very good expansion plan, given everyone responsibilities. At this point, the key question is, do you have what is really, really needed to do a sufficiently successful and efficient expansion? And that drives us back to the next step, where we're going to look at expansion, do's and don'ts. So here I've just listed a list of factors that everyone needs to consider when they're preparing for an expansion. The first one is cultural and language differences. Now, if I were to give you an example of East Africa, if you're in Kenya, Nairobi, to be specific, and you're operating a business, you can be able to do even 18, close to 20 hours of business, and be very pushy about that. But if you go to Kampala, for example, and it's 12:30, between 12:30 and 1:30 towards 2, almost everything goes to a standstill because after lunch, people like having naps. So if you're a person who's planning to expand to Uganda, for example, this is not something that you would see in books, you would see anywhere. You would only know if you spoke to someone who's seated in Kampala, who can be able to tell you, hey, don't put the event at 12:30 to 2 because people would simply not show up because they're having a nap, they're having a break after having their lunch. While in Kenya, if you put it at 12:30, people will still come. They'd rather push their lunch forward. So think about those cultural and language differences. What are the nuances? What should you do? What could affect your demand? And what could also affect your supply of employees? Because even the employees, you need to also attract good quality employees for your expansion to be successful. Then number 2, what are the complementary services available? For instance, for a recruitment company, say an online company that assists in connecting gig workers from Africa to clients from United States, for example, they need to be paid. So if you are a recruitment board and you have no way of ensuring that my payment is flawless, I would tend as a gig worker to look for a place where I don't have to go through the hassle of finding someone who can be able to pay me directly. So is that service available in that market that you want to expand to? Is that service available in that city that you want to expand to? Does it mean that it will slow down whatever you're trying to achieve? Another example is, say, for example, you're having a logistics company. If you go to a new market, it makes sense before hiring independent couriers to approach a third-party lender, which are companies that normally have a pool of couriers. They can give you the couriers to start with, and then you can be able to start off your business. You've catapulted the business in such a way that you don't have to struggle in getting good quality couriers. But is this company even there in that area that you want to expand to? And if it's there, is it something that you can be able to work with? Next, what are the legal and policy activities going on in that area? Is it something that you need to consider in terms of expansion? For instance, I think in 2021, there was a ban of use of motorcycles for ferrying human beings, let me call it that, for rides in Lagos. So that means if you're a bus company and you've been thinking, should I go to Lagos or should I just stay in Abuja? That is the perfect opportunity for you to actually start something off in Lagos. It might not be that you had planned to do it next month, but because the ban is coming up next month, why don't you do it in 3 months? Look at the economic conditions. Like what is happening right now, there's a general downturn, and it doesn't mean that the downturn is going to affect your business opportunity, but look at my segment. What does the downturn mean for my segment? How are similar businesses faring in that market? Is it the right time for me to expand, or am I going to waste so much money in user acquisition or marketing and then have an expansion failure? So think about these things. What are some of the risks that you could have, and how can you prepare yourself for that risk? And in this section, I know we always like to be optimistic. In this section, I would like to encourage you to be as pessimistic as possible so that you can be able to know if everything fails, what is the monetary value that I could be losing here? And look at the benefits that you're set up to gain from the expansion and compare to this cost. And then, of course, optimize your operations before expansion. It's very important to ensure that whatever you have right now is working and good. And finally, how do you make your expansion efficient? Just a call out on resources. Ensure that you have accurate budgeting and strong controls. I know this might seem obvious, but when you're expanding, especially on the first 1 month of operations, things normally run too quickly and money is flowing out too quickly, that you find that it becomes hard to actually have the controls. Like, for instance, someone tells you, hey, I need money for this, I need money for this. You find that people keep on churning this. And then 6 months later, you're trying to do your first financials and you can't, because You don't know where the money went to. You just know that I gave Janet $50,000. She gave me back 30,000. I can't explain where the 20,000 goes to. So please look at that. It is very easy to find yourself sucked into that deep, especially because things are moving really, really fast. And then number two, do I have existing relationships that I can move on to this new market? You don't need to go shopping for new things. So if you have a relationship that is working well in the current market, ask them for a regional kind of plan. And that way you'll even be able to negotiate better rates. Very important, I already mentioned in the beginning, have a local resource because they will help you with negotiating. How someone negotiates in your home country versus how a visitor will come to negotiate, the pricing definitely is very different, especially when you're thinking of economies of scale. They will be able to tell you who's the right person, what is the best quality. How about the team? Consider the right leadership team. It is always to ensure that the people you have on your bus are the right team. And I'll tell you for free, expansion is heavy. It is lots of working. It is going into the field. It is getting into the mud. It is getting your hands dirty. If you don't have the right team to do this, you will not be able to succeed. You need someone who is be able to push themselves to do this. And then there's always a question of, should we start hiring from the leadership? Should we start hiring from the team? My opinion, and this one I caveat it as my opinion, I think it makes sense to start hiring from the leadership. Why? Because it means that the leadership that you've hired can be able to bring in their own team. It will avoid that friction that is there at the beginning when the team is trying to learn how the leader works. But if you have a strain of resources, the leadership will most probably be more expensive. Try to see if you can bring in a leader from one of the other countries to support, and then you can hire the team and hire the leader as the last person once the country is already trying to be self-sustaining. So I mean, it depends on your context on this one. And then something that people forget is training and development. Again, I mentioned everything is moving so fast. You will find very many instances where someone is told, you come in, start the work, and then we'll onboard later. What you're doing there is that you're eroding your culture because that person will come in with the culture of wherever they've come in. You've not told them what the culture is all about. Number two, they may not do everything to your standards. They may fall short on some things. So it's very, very important, even if everything is moving very fast, stop for a heartbeat and give them this training and development that they need to be able to do the expansion correctly. And then finally, processes, very, very key. Create a comprehensive plan, have a plan that has everything that you need and metrics that you can follow up. And a very important is having someone who's responsible for everything that is being done. Then rely on technology as much as possible. I know a lot of the processes might need to be manual at the beginning, but in order to achieve the controls that I mentioned before, it is important to try and automate as soon as possible. Some tricks that I've seen some companies do is that they start with the technology first, have it like a sandbox, and then they can do the expansion. Again, it all depends on the type of company this is and the amount of resources that are there, but try to rely on technology as soon as possible. And the technology doesn't really need to be expensive. Sometimes you find something that as simple as Google Sheets can be able, or Google Forms can help you to be able to automate some of these processes. And then finally, do you need to build something new or do you need to buy? By here, what I mean is if I want to say, go to South Africa, and there might be another company that is similar to the one that I have, do I need to actually start building from scratch or should I join hands here, either have a joint venture or acquire them at this point? And this is something that you need to have the math and you need to have the pros and cons done to be able to determine what makes sense. And then during the actual expansion, one of the things here that I wish everyone told me when I first started doing the expansions is you really, it's very, very important to meet the local government or city council, meet someone local and create a rapport. What this does is that it is an informal way of showing people that you're coming in to assist the local business. It creates a level of trust, especially when you're going to tier 2 or tier 3 cities, because these cities tend to be very close-knit in Africa especially, and everyone knows everyone. Most probably, maybe this is something that they've never seen, especially if it's a very new kind of service in the platform. So you actually need backup from the leadership of that area. Just create a rapport. Some people argue that by doing this, you're attracting tax or harassment and so on and so forth. But if you find the right person, and that's why you need a local resource to be able to tell you who is the right person for you to meet. If you find the right person, it is normally quite powerful. Then test everything before the actual expansion. Test it yourself, make sure you do it. Start small with low-hanging fruits and continue growing. Another very important point is it's good to be ambitious, but it is very, very, very important for you to be realistic. For instance, if you had a plan and it was a tight-knit plan, but something happened that could cause a delay, it's okay. Move the things before moving too fast and then it being expensive. For instance, you've gone to a tier 2 city, everything is going to plan, everything is ready, but you do not have the permits. You'd rather just have the team lying around in the office and doing nothing rather than go into operation, and then this costs you. And localize all the marketing materials. More than you realize it, customers can tell when materials is being reused. It is especially quite sore to the mouth if this marketing material is for a different country and the customers can tell these are people from this and this country or this and this region. Why are you using it here? They'll not build that trust. And finally, be agile. It's okay to make mistakes, learn from them, but also be agile enough to be able to put yourself in that position where you're willing to try out and make these mistakes. And always remember, the new markets are different from the existing markets, even if it is within the same country. Always have that at the back of your mind. And then finally, this is the last slide. There's something that is called over-aggressive expansion. This has worked for some companies and it has not worked for some companies. What happens in over-aggressive expansion? So there's always pressure from investors. Hey, you've raised this round. You told us that you're going to expand. What's going on? And pressure from competition. Hey, your competition is doing ABCDEF. You look like you're lagging behind. Or customers. You've probably done a YouTube advert for the whole, YouTube can go to the whole country, and then you're looking at the downloads, how it is mapping in the map, and you're seeing, there's that small area over there where there are lots of downloads, but you know very well the infrastructure there won't work, or it is on the other side of the country. Does it make sense for you to expand there? You can't have the customer just lead you there. You have to think of how will I manage this area of the country when I'm on this other side? What does it mean in terms of infrastructure, getting to that expanding area? And then finally, lack of proper financial planning. You've gone around and you had not made a 10-year plan, or you'd not made a real solid plan. It means that you'll start thinking, okay, what do I do with these funds? Let me expand. That's not the right reason to expand. You should be able to have other things pushing you. I agree, resources are important, but they should not be the ones that are fueling your expansion. And when you have over-aggressive expansion, what happens to the company? There's pressure on leadership. As I mentioned, leadership has to balance the day-to-day activities and this expansion. And if you keep adding countries every other month, of course, it's bound to crack. And then there'll be lack of focus and operational inefficiencies. It means that you will be moving just to move. You will not be thinking about how can we grow efficiently, which one makes sense for me to start with, and then I can use this one as the second place that I go to, or this as a third. And then if everything is falling, if the cracks are beginning to form, what will happen is that in your host country or in your main country, you'll find that your user experience will start going down. People will start realizing that you're not as good as you used to be. And this will lead to brand dilution. I mean, brand dilution is more expensive than that new market that you're trying to get. And I've spoken a lot. It's time for me to stop. I don't know if there are any questions from your end. And let me check on the chat box. Okay, there are none?
None for now. We can take it after the return from the breakout room.
Okay, cool. So Very simple case study. Will be done in a breakout room. And then Kenem, maybe you can help with sharing the link to the case study on the chat. Please make a copy of the document. Don't need to be filling it in there. And then you have 20 minutes. Please nominate someone to share the findings with the larger group. Okay, I think now we can go to the breakout rooms.
Sorry, please, I've been finding it difficult to log in. I did not follow the instruction. Can you please repeat? Thank you very much.
The breakout room, to log into the breakout room?
I just logged in. I don't know what is that.
Okay. So we've already done a 20-minute session on expansion. So now we are doing a case study. And we are having people go into breakout rooms and discussing that as groups, and then we'll come back and discuss the conclusions.
Okay, let me just wait now to when they come out for the discussion class, because I
no, it is going to be, you'll be able to do the case study even without having had the first part. So just join the group that you've been assigned to.
It's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone has been assigned to a room, so please join the breakout room.
Stephen, are you part of a group?
Oh, God.
What's up?
I'm trying.
Summarize, I think, the discussion we had. I think net we did not have one answer. We have two answers, basis considerations, but I think it was a great discussion.
Yeah. Okay, would you like me to go ahead now, or do we wait for the rest?
I think everyone is here. This is just, everyone is here, right? Yeah.
Yes, everyone is here.
Yeah, everyone is here.
All right, now I'll go ahead. In our group, we had a good discussion and we could quite pick which one was best. In fact, we thought all three strategies were not bad. It was just an issue of prioritization, but we also gave reasons for that. In terms of expanding to the 3 countries, one of the questions was, because we don't know which country, it could actually be an advantage that one of the countries actually has a very good and big market for the business. So it's actually a good thing to expand into it. It has less risks, and so it might actually be the way to go. We also were thinking about what might be influencing that decision would be the owner's appetite in terms of how they want the company to expand, in terms of market leadership, how they see their brand growing. And so that might actually make that difference on, by knowing which country it is, it might make the difference on that being like the priority to just go ahead and expand. In terms of option 2, introducing a new child segment, we're thinking that because they are already serving their market very well, they know their market and they do this in terms of apparel very well, this will just be a new addition, and it's okay to try, and it's still close to home. So again, there was a suggestion that maybe they might choose to go that way, just because it's new, but it's not so removed from the kind of business that they do. So it's almost the logical next step to take. Then we also looked at option 3 and said, okay, maybe they could partner with Zara because of the size, and it might be easier for them in terms of a partnership to be able to get into a new country. But then there was hesitation around it is not clear how the partnership is structured or would be structured or negotiated, and that might actually be a risk to the business, or it might actually be detrimental to the business in terms of their model, their product, and all that. So we couldn't quite choose one. We looked mostly at the pros and cons, but we thought all ideas were great. It's just a matter of prioritizing after looking at the risks. And maybe the team can add on to that in case I left out anything. Thank you.
So one question to your team, with the additional information for question 2, did it change your answer?
So we weren't able to get to question 2, Janet. I think there was a heated debate on the first 3 options itself. But I think by 2-1, at least from the 3 people who voiced their opinion, we went with option 2. But yeah, it was close between all 3 for us.
Okay. How about group 1? But very, very, very good findings from your end. And those are the types of questions we actually want you to be thinking about strategically when you're thinking of expansion. So I don't know who will be presenting on group 1, the other group. I think Paul. Paul? Who is taking up group 2 presentation? Who was nominated? I think they could have dropped off because I see we are less 1 person.
Yeah, I think he dropped off.
Sorry?
Paul is not in the room at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe someone else can just go in and tell us, give us a flavor of what you've been discussing.
I think Paul was supposed to, present on our behalf, but given he's not there, I'm not sure. Amos, if you want to go, or no?
Okay, I'm here. So what we were discussing, number 1, which I really had a lot of input in, was expansion of businesses in Africa. Number 1 was language barrier. I personally, based on my own experience, I've tried launching my startup in Tanzania and Zimbabwe and Zambia. It's insane that some countries, that even Tanzania, which is closer to where I am, it's insane because they speak Swahili, we speak Swahili, but it's kind of not the same Swahili. So sometimes people don't even want to use your products because they are wondering, why are you making me download an app? Yet you have my phone number. We can just do business directly on WhatsApp. We've also identified that there are issues compared to the number of users that have Apple devices compared to the guys who have Android devices. Shockingly, in Africa, Apple is not as big as they think they are. So most people end up having Androids. So meaning if you're going to launch a product directly on iOS, you might have some shortages compared to somebody who's already on Google Play Store. So in general, what we were discussing was factors affecting Africa. It's insane that even I can send money directly to Zimbabwe and I'm in Kenya. It's a hassle to do that. So our continent has made it so hard for startups to do businesses within each other, within the continent itself. Also the visa part of it, it's nice that Kenya now you can be able to move to South Africa without a visa. That means it's easier for us to conduct businesses that way. But it's insane that going to Egypt, some guys like from Nigeria here, they have to go fast to Europe so that they can connect to Egypt. Our leaders are just making it hard, and I don't know how we can get a solution for that. But we're just pushing, and I'm glad that we are all here trying to figure out how to be able to do business together. That was a bit of what we discussed.
So which strategy did your team choose between the 3?
It's gonna be a bit hard to answer because we were all, there goes Paul. Paul, you're putting me on the...
Okay,
Paul,
thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, so on the prioritization, there was a strong commonality when it comes to expansion to hardware because the competitors entering that market. So we're like, okay, it's better we also enter it faster before they dominate it. That was one. Then also the expansion was tricky to the 3 countries at once. It was if expansion maybe within the country or expanding into 1 or 2 countries. Then there was the one for Zara partnership was that it was based on the app development, but it needs a lot of resources. So we prioritize the other 2.
Okay.
Amos, I think, has already shared about also on the risks. The competition that was uptrend is coming up, is a big competitor. Then the second also is mentioned about the finance. Though it wasn't very clear whether the company has already finances. Then Amos also emphasized a lot on the local knowledge, language as a key risk when expanding to other countries. But then in addition, of course, the operations when it comes to operating into international countries. The 2 team members, expertise wasn't very clear whether they know international markets or not. But then it comes out as also risk. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good insights. Thank you, Tim, for that discussion. And I know we are 2 minutes past time, but just give me 1 minute to just complete one final thing here on conclusion. What if expansion does not work? What if you've gone in, you've done everything as perfectly as you thought that it could be, you've become agile, you've pushed in the team, you've even sent some more teams, but the efforts are not just yielding into benefits? You should exit. And I know it sounds like it's not something that you should be thinking when planning for an expansion, but I think it is important to plan for best case scenario and also plan for worst case scenario. And it's very, very important to ensure that so that you don't have unnecessary financial drain, because at this point, I imagine you're already experiencing a financial drain to some level, and you don't have a demotivated team, people who are working towards something. I know even you yourself, if you're trying to work towards something and there are no benefits coming out of it, you will tend to become demotivated and start having misalignment. So it's very, very important to always know that you have an exit strategy when you're planning for your expansion, not once you're in the expansion. And what does this include? At a high level, and I'm trying to think this from different points of views in terms of different platforms. Number 1, have metrics that you use as traffic lights to be able to tell you, are we headed in the right direction or are we going down the drain? For instance, looking at leadership position, how many customers you're acquiring, is there churn? You might be acquiring a lot and there's churn. How is the legal environment? Is it helping you? Something as simple as funds, are you able to easily repatriate funds, or are you able to easily collect funds from your customers? Look at the metrics that make sense for your business and ensure that you have this and you're always looking at them as your traffic light, so that in case you see that things are there's a cloud that is beginning to come up, you can be able to either think of pivoting or exiting. Number 2, is there a possibility of relying on another country office? For instance, if you're expanding from, say, Kenya to Zambia or to Tanzania, can you rely on the Kenya office while you're doing the exit, so that you don't have too much capital expenses as you plan the exit? Because sometimes the exit strategy may take a few months because of the legality, employment contracts, lease, and so on and so forth. So is there a country office that you can rely on as you're doing the exit? What is the stakeholder communication plan? And stakeholder means everyone that your organization touches, from your investors to the last employee or to the courier, and so on and so forth. Think about your employees. How can you transition them, especially the top performing ones, to other positions in your company? You don't want to lose them. I mean, you spent a lot of money to hire them. So if you're able to transition them to another position, perfect, especially at the age of remote working, that would be very perfect. How are your contracts structured? Is it going to become very expensive to liquidate? Is there a possibility of getting a slightly more expensive contract, at least for the first year or for the first period, that can allow you to quickly liquidate in case you need to have an exit strategy? as opposed to having a 10-year lease, which will become very expensive to break. And then finally, we can just expand and then have a white flag without learning what made us fail, or what can the next person try to learn from what I did. That there's definitely something that you did right. So always have a post-exit analysis to be able to collect the learnings. And exiting is not uncommon. I have given you some examples of some platforms that have exited, like Safe Border exited Kenya and Nigeria at the height of COVID because they quickly realized that it will be very expensive to keep these two businesses and remain profitable. And I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, no one knew how this would end. Sweep South exited Kenya when it was not panning out as well as they thought it would be. Didi, which is a ride-hailing company from China, exited South Africa when it realized the competition from Uber and Bolt is too cutthroat. Glovo exited from Egypt because it was trying to create a very good partnership with its now majority shareholder Delivery Hero. Uber Eats realized it can't become a market leader in 7 markets in 2021, and it exited 7 of them at the same time. So it really is not bad to say that, hey, this one is not working out, let's try again. But the key thing is always looking at your North Star. What is your business strategy? And is it working out in this market? That's not to mean that it's all gloom. There are some successful stories. There are some which are global, but if I were to look at the African ones, like Little Cab is a company in Kenya that has really succeeded in expanding through increasing its verticals. It started as a taxi. Now it even has movie tickets and is actually really thinking about expanding its vertical. And that is giving it its competitive edge compared to the other competitors. If you think of Jobberman, Jumia has gone to very many countries, the same thing with Gigi, and so on and so forth. And that brings me to the end. I don't know if there are any burning questions. If not, maybe I can take them online. And yes, Kenny has put in a feedback form in the chat. Please, if you take a minute or two to just fill it in. It only has 3 questions, so it won't take even a minute to finish filling it in. Please, we love feedback. We love to know what you think about this. I don't know if anyone wants to open the mic and give a comment, a question, anything.
My hand is up.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Joseph.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My own first is a request. The materials like the case study, I would like it to be sent to people like that want it or that do not miss, so that subsequently I can go through it to learn so that I will not totally miss. Secondly, you talk about expansion. Of course, we know as startups, expansion is a very delicate issue. You can't compare it with Meta, Jobberman, and the rest of them, because those people have already been in the system for a long time and they have gained traction financially and otherwise. So it is easier for them to. For some of us, is there any plans and grants that Jobtech will help us in 2 areas? Finance and mentor. I know you people are good in providing mentorship, but for finance is what that most of us are lacking, so that we can be able to compete with big masquerades, so to speak, in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasper. I hope I said your name right. But yes, we love giving assistance, and probably in case you have anything that you need, we can take this offline and just have a conversation on the same. But yes, definitely would love to give assistance, and that is one of the services that we offer in the Innovation Lab. Yes, go ahead, Naomi.
A quick question from your experience. In all these cases, I don't know that you've been involved, but from your experience, have you seen that the market research that was done was completely outside what turned out as a result? You know, because the market research is supposed to inform, but has it been that the market research was very close? Was it very far removed? I just want to know from your experience whether the market research has been a useful tool to either mitigate some of these outcomes that the examples that you've given. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Naomi. Very good question. Yes, market research is helpful, but it's helpful to a certain extent, and I'll explain why. Think of it in terms of, number one, time difference between the time that the market research was being done versus the time that you're actually going on the ground. Most of the time, if you're a very agile company, that will take about 6 months because they have to do the research, they have to do the report, they have to report it to you, and then you have to prepare based on the findings and so on and so forth. So there's a time difference, which means a lot could have changed, especially in terms of new entrants, the policy, and we cannot forget Forex. The exchange rate could have changed the tables and made everything different. But does it mean that it's not a good tool? No, it is a good tool in making the initial decision. I remember, like, for example, in your team, you spoke of which country is it, which country does it make sense to go to first, and so on and so forth. Market research will help you with that. But does it mean that if you should have it as your Bible when you're going into expansion? Not really. I think it's good to ensure yourself to allow yourself to be agile and to change according to the circumstances, because circumstances change quite fast. Yeah. Any other question? All right, I think we can end it at that. Please feel free to reach out in case you have any other questions.
Thank you everyone for joining today's masterclass. We would be sharing the materials tomorrow. You would wake up to it on your email or before the end of the day tomorrow. We would share the materials. And like Janet has said, she will be dropping her email on the chat box. I would also drop the Jobtech Alliance email on the chat box. So please feel free to reach out to us with your feedback or any assistance. And generally, check our website. We have tons of resources that we have put together that would help you and your startup. So yeah, do enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you and bye.